Hey, everybody, and welcome to the third installation of the benefits of slowing down. As you can see, it's been about 3 weeks since I've had an opportunity to come in here and check in with my folks over here on YouTube. And before I get started on anything, I want you, if you have not done so already, I want you to like, share, subscribe, and comment here below about either this episode or the episodes previous to this. And let me know if there's any other areas that you might want to help me hit on when it comes to, specifically to this topic of slowing down. So I'm not going to hold y'all long today. I'm not going to hold y'all long today. Y'all know it's been about 3 weeks since I've had the bandwidth. I think that's the best way to put it. Since I've had the bandwidth to actually sit down and put something to video about everything that's happening right now. So, unless you are just completely oblivious and just choosing not to engage, which I can totally understand, there's a lot happening right now. And so I think it took me too long. It took me 3 weeks, not too long, but 3 weeks to respond because I think I was having some somatic symptoms that was coming up in my body. Understanding that we were about to get a new administration here. I think this might be a part of that. I think it might be some other things that are going on as well too. But it's been this thing that's happening is that we're coming out of this time period where we know as soon as the swearing in takes place, some things are going to hit the fan, and no doubt that it did not disappoint. It happened pretty much just like that. So welcome to of this particular administration where we're going to be holding on to our edges the best way we know how. But I felt like I had to take a moment to ground myself, to pay attention to what was happening in my own body, and to see and get really clear about what I want to engage and what I don't want to engage. And that's going to be a little bit about what we talk about today. So this particular session of the benefits of slowing down is dedicated to the ushering of this new administration and what has happened in the past 9 days, 8 days, 8 to 9 days. I'm looking at the date right here. Past 8 to 9 days. It has been rapid fire, nonstop information overload for a lot of people's systems. This does not come as a surprise to me. This particular tactic is doing exactly what it needs to do for a lot of people, which is to incite panic. Um, and for that, and when that happens, we don't make our best decisions, and we have a hard time dealing or addressing what's happening in this moment. So, I've just been paying attention just to a lot of people. I'm in and out the news, but not too much into it. But I am doing enough to pay attention to what's going on. So we know that there's some sweeping executive orders that have come down that is that has the potential or has already started to impact marginalized groups, persons who are in marginalized groups. And it's been very hard to watch. And so when things come really rapid fire like that, one of the things that came up as I'd been watching this, and particularly there's a news reporter over on TikTok that I enjoy who gives breaking news. That's been the thing that that everybody's talking about. Everything is breaking. Everything is breaking news. Everything is breaking news. And every time that people hear breaking news, it does something to them. And I had to take a moment to think about that because I was just like, you know what? It actually does do something to you. So I had to go back. Had to go back into my the science of the brain and mental health. It's not my forte, but in my learnings, we learn some really basic fundamental things about the brain and how it works and how it impacts mood and different things like that. And I thought that would be worthwhile to share here. So when I hear from a lot of people saying that every time that breaking news happens, something viscerally happens in their bodies. If I want to offer you up the science behind this thing happening. So anytime that there's like an emotional type of hijacking or panic that sets in, it actually activates the parts of our brain that's responsible for emotional processing, and more specifically to our fight, flight, fawn, or fear. So that's our amygdala. The amygdala has everything to do with our emotional responses to everything. And so the minute that something comes up that incites the nervous system, that sends those signals to the amygdala, it sets off a series of hormones that flow through your body, glucose being one of them, cortisol being, cortisol? Cortisol, I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know why I got cortisol on the mind, but cortisol being one of them as well too. And those are in adrenaline, and adrenaline happens in the body. So imagine having, with every breaking news, a flush of glucose that sends you into fight response and gets your body ready to respond. Adrenaline, we know what that does, and cortisol to help with stress, or that it's a stress hormone, or it's activated when stress happens. All of that is to support us readying our bodies for something to happen. Well, it's a very primitive response. We have absolutely no control over it happening. But imagine just that rapid firing over and 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 over, and how Marshawn Lynch said over and over and over and over and over and over again in our bodies. We are getting flooded with so many hormones that's happening right now in response to these things that are taking place in our external environment, whether they're happening to us directly or we're witnessing these things. We are still having a response to it. That's what's happening, I believe, to a lot of people who are paying attention to every single detail of what's happening in the news, is that your physiological response is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, we can get into the conspiracy theories and the thoughts on whether or not it's intentional. A lot of people believe it's intentional. I have my thoughts about that. I'm not here to talk necessarily about my thoughts about that, but I just want to bring your awareness to this is what's happening biochemically in your body when breaking news. This thing happened. This thing happened. This thing happened. This is happening. This is happening. It's just signaling all of these things taking place, right? You have that happen for long enough, you will eventually burn out your adrenals and experience a fatigue. So anytime that your body, and so your body is in the sympathetic mode. Am I saying? I'm trying to remember if I'm saying that right. I'm getting my science here. But there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic area. So the parasympathetic is where we want to live. The parasympathetic is when we're putting the brakes on all of that and relaxing. But when the nervous system is activated is when all of that stuff is happening, when I mentioned about the hormones. We got to be mindful of how this impacts us physiologically. When we're consuming media and everything that's happening right now, is that it keeps your nervous system in a heightened state, a hypervigilant state, that when it comes down and you're finally going into a parasympathetic space, that you might get sick, that you might find yourself extremely exhausted. And there's some host of other things that I'll actually list in this video as well too. But those are the things that come to mind. It's just the fatigue and the compromise, because when we're in those spaces, we compromise. Our immune system becomes compromised. It's not what we're doing, because the goal is that we're never meant to live in that heightened state. That is for a response to threat. Now, like I said, your body's doing exactly what it was supposed to do, but we're responding to what we feel like is a threat at all moments. It's a very primitive response, and it's being experienced by a lot of people. So what I wanted to share with you all right now, and I mentioned this to a client this week. This is going to be the time that you want to tap into all your tools. So if you're working with a therapist, if you're working with a coach, if you've been working with one, if you worked with one in the past, this is going to be the time that you're going to want to tap into all of your tools. You're going to want to be in the best health possible for you as we navigate this time. it's going to feel crappy if you're feeling crappy and then things are constantly pulling pulling at you to pay attention to. So you're going to really want to have to fortify yourself. So one of the things that I want to offer in doing that is limit what you take in. And I know that you heard this over and over and over again. And the question that I want you to begin to ask yourself is that why am I having a difficult time limiting things? What does accessing information in this moment, what am I telling myself that this is doing for me? And so if you have, and I'm going to link this here as well too. Dr. Brittany Cooper put out a statement, what's the day? Wednesday. I want to say it was either Monday or Sunday. I can't remember. And I'm paraphrasing it, that she talked specifically about the difference between having information and having knowledge, and the importance of getting it into community so you can synthesize all of the information in a way to find out if everything that what you're taking in is important for you to be taken in. Just because you have information doesn't necessarily mean that you have knowledge about what's happening. Anybody can throw information out, and when she said it, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I was just like, you're exactly right, because what we are good at doing in times of incitement of anxiety and panic is splashing that all over social media or in group text and different things like that. But having the information doesn't mean that you have the knowledge about what's happening, because we don't know, with all of these executive orders that are coming down, we don't know the working pieces behind all of that and how that really actually operationalizes. All we get is the clickbait. If I had to describe it as anything, the executive order is the clickbait. We don't have all of the information. And some things we are seeing is happening. I'm not denying that. But we don't have all of the information of how things actually roll out. So pay attention not only to what you're taking in, but limiting yourself to what you're actually taking in. Getting into community helps you develop your knowledge base, because there's other people in community. And I believe that this is the essence of what Dr. Cooper was sharing, is that the essence, being in community is the essence of, helps with us being able to take the information that we have and make it into a knowledge base that's useful for us. And then once we can get that thing synthesized into something that's helpful for us, then we'll know how to move about a certain thing. If I'm in community and I'm sharing information with people and they're sharing some other things with me, and I'm just like, oh, so this is what this really means, and this is what this is, so and so, and blah, 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 I can make a determination if I have any control over that. I can make a determination if I have the ability to influence it or not. I can make a determination if this is a space where I need to pivot on some things and incorporate or integrate some new information to help with to combat all that's coming in. So limit your information that's coming in. But if you're going to continue to take information that's coming in, don't just do it in a silo. Do it with a group of people that can challenge what you're saying, what you're integrating into yourself, because they can help give you better understanding or a different perspective about how to handle that information that's coming in. Another thing that I haven't heard spoken about during all of this, and maybe this is something that I've been feeling in my system as well too, is that I want you to begin to consider honoring the grief that may be present right now. Honoring the grief of, it hasn't always been calm, but it was calmer before January 20th for a lot of people in a lot of ways. There's a lot of grief associated with having to pivot and transition that fast. And I think about that with a lot of the executive orders that are affecting employment for a lot of people. There's a lot of grief that's present here, both individually and collectively, and we are all feeling that. We are all feeling the grief. Take a moment to slow down and honor that there is a lot of sadness here. And that might look like crying. That might look like screaming. That might look like being able to be angry and raging in a healthy environment. And so for my people that might be in Richmond, Virginia, I am a fan of Rage RVA, when you can go and smash up and break up some shit. It's a help, because that energy has to move through your body. And eventually you want to move it in a way where it doesn't stay stuck and stagnant in you. if you're anywhere listening to this, if you have a place where you can go in a healthy environment, go break and damage some things because verbally you might not have the words for what you're feeling, go do that. That's why they exist. That's why those spaces exist, right? Consider doing that. I'm not going to tell you to do that. I don't give advice here, but it's a thought for consideration. But there's a lot of grief that's here. Another thing, of course, is just your mindfulness practices. And again, that can look like how much information I'm taking in. Am I holding my breath and noticing what my body is doing in and of it, in all of this? This can look like breath work. There's a person on another social media platform that I follow that talks about the different type of breath work that's needed for different responses, like for stress, for anxiety, for overwhelm. There's different breath works that you can take for that, for feeling blocked and different things like that. If I can locate it, I'll tag that information here as well too. But mindfulness practices are really big right now. And you've been hearing it more. The last thing that I want to share before I get out of here is that the last thing that you've been hearing a lot of people talk about is getting into community. And so I want to be really mindful. I really want to use that with like an asterisk. Get into community where it feels good for you. I'm not inviting you or to think about getting into a community where y'all just triggering each other back and forth. That's not going to be helpful right now. Get somewhere where you are loved, where you are accepted just as you are, where your voice is heard, your concerns are seen, and maybe it might be a community that has nothing to do with all of this other stuff that I talked about, right? It could be the community of hobbies that you have. It can be book club communities. It can be community of your places of divination, whatever that might look like for you. It can be community in nature, which is one of my best communities. I actually took a moment to stand outside in the sun today because I had put my plant in the window. And I'm just making sure that her name is Penelope. I had to make sure she gets some sun. And I was like, wait a minute, let me take my ass outside and charge myself up. And went outside and stood in the sun for a minute. But nature's a really big part of my community practice, is being able to touch nature, touch grass, touch trees, see animals, see all of these things, and then be around people who enjoy those things. And so there might be more that come up around this particular piece of the benefits of slowing down. But what I do know is that if you're running warp speed and in a constant state of panic and scatter, you're going to miss the ways that you can support yourself in this moment. All of this is possible the moment you choose to slow yourself down. And another community that I didn't mention is also being in the community with your family, right? If that's what feels good for you, or your chosen family. So that's what I have. That's what I have for this right now. I'm sure I probably have more. I will have more. I know I will. But I just wanted to make sure that I'm touching base with you all. Like I said, do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I do this. I try to be here weekly. That is my goal, is to be here weekly and bringing up an offering. And it'll be a different topic. But right now it's slowing down. And I'm really glad that I thought about this coming into the new year, because who knew that we was going to need it in this way. So, like I said, take y'all time out there. Be mindful of what you're ingesting. Move your body if you can. Be mindful. And I might bring Marlene on here, because she's also a therapist. I'm thinking about a friend of mine. She's a therapist who also does integrated health work. And she talks about the benefits of being really mindful about what you eat and how different foods actually talk to the DNA in our body to support our overall health. So I might have to grab her and get her on an episode, especially for this time period, because I know when we have stress responses, we pull and grab for our stress food. But it might not be the best thing to fortify our bodies right now. So, got a lot of thoughts about this. Take your time. Share below what you think about what's being shared today. I want to hear your thoughts about all of this. So, until then, I will see you next time. Y'all take care.